Welcome to the Stonewall Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Camry, and with me today is Geoffrey Gran, the owner and Chief Hot Sauce Officer of Ignite Consulting Group. Geoffrey, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate being on this vlog.
All right, awesome. And so first, if you don't mind, just talk a little bit about yourself, kind of how did you get into the industry, and talk a bit about the different companies you run.
Okay, perfect. So born and raised in Chicago my entire life, and after college came back and really started my career in healthcare and really enjoyed it. But back in 2004, one of my best friends growing up, Bill Hoyer, had reached out to me and said, hey, we should probably go into business together. We started doing a bunch of research, and at the end of the day, after a long, exhaustive search, we ended up on countertops. And so Bill and I started this business July 1st of 2005. And it was really interesting because when we started the business, we didn't come from the industry. And so many of our countertop brethren, there's somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 in North America, really have deep roots in the industry itself. And it's super impressive. And I appreciate all they've done. And so I think in the beginning, we were told that it was going to be very difficult for us and it was going to be hard for us to succeed because we didn't have that background. And while we certainly understand that was important, we come at it from a little bit of a different perspective. We are classically trained sales and marketing guys, with some operations and financial background. And our thought was, we're going to make this a business, a sales and marketing company that happens to manufacture and install countertops. And we'll go find the amazing talent that's out there that actually knows how to do the technical skill. And so again, like I said, it was Bill and I. We had about a 6,000 square foot warehouse, and that's about it. And then we went out and found customers. And fast forward today, a little over 160 employees, fully automated, fully digital sales and marketing company that happens to make countertops.
That's awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I'm pretty excited to talk to you today is because I really want to kind of pick your brain when we go to these different fabricator seminars. A lot of times fabricators don't always know how to generate new leads or generate more revenue, or they just think they need to find a new customer and just sell that one customer and that's it. And they're just selling a countertop and that's it. So kind of what is your perspective on all this? How do you generate more leads and how do you sell more to your already existing customer base?
So I actually think you've touched upon something that's incredibly important, and it's really not just for our industry. I think this is a challenge for many small businesses. You get somebody who is an expert in their field, let's call them a technician, and in our case, we're really good at making a countertop, but maybe don't always have the business acumen and the business training to understand that side of it. And so for us, coming from a sales and marketing side, we wanted to make sure we controlled our own fate. And so how did we do that? It was about customer outreach. It's about actually having a sales staff, actually having a list of arrows in your quiver, so to speak, to be able to go out to that customer. I think there's a lot of fabricators who do a really nice job manufacturing and installing, but really kind of only offer basics to a customer. But in this day and age, customers want convenience. Jason, the reason why everybody buys things on Amazon, right, and why Jeff Bezos is worth 110 billion is because Amazon has made things very easy for the consumer. In fact, so easy that when you buy one thing, it tells you, hey, you should also buy these 3 or 4 other things. And it's called predictive selling. And so about 7 or 8 years ago, we realized that, especially in Chicago market, there's probably about 350 to 400 fabricators of all different sizes and experience. And quality, I guess I should add that. And we realized that we needed to differentiate ourselves. And so we started saying, okay, instead of just selling the basic countertop and a basic edge, we're going to sell more. And how you do that is, first and foremost, you have to listen to the customer. We were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. And I think sometimes, especially guys like me, that's the sales and marketing guy, we tend to talk a little much. But we really should be listening more. And we should be asking the customer what their needs are and then figuring out how to provide them as long as it fits within your scope, right? We don't want you to get over your skis and get yourself into trouble. You need to make sure that you can produce what you promise. And so I think for us, really providing the entire project scope that we can for our customer has been an absolute huge win. It is really hard, and truthfully, it is expensive to acquire customers, right? Think about it. Showroom, samples, salespeople, website, search engine optimization, all of these things cost money, and a lot of them are esoteric, and a lot of them cost a lot of money. And so when you get that customer, our theory is hug them, squeeze them, kiss them, and never let them go, right?
Right.
And in order to do that, you really have to understand and sell them everything that they need. So that's kind of how we've had that success on creating that more revenue. And I think when you do that and you can be that single source for that customer, they're going to come back feeling really satisfied, and then they're going to go tell other people, right? A lot of us, a lot of fabricators rely on that referral, that word of mouth business. And what better way to get your customers excited by truly making it a great experience for them? And it's not just the countertop. It's everything surrounding it as well.
I was gonna say, yeah, I kind of wanted to go into that because you hear a lot of fabricators and talk to them about this. Like, well, I'm trying to sell them on a different edge. I'm trying to sell them on the backsplash, but that's all I have. That's all I could do. What else should fabricators be looking at to sell customers?
Oh man, that's a great question. Now you get into my sweet spot. So look, the number one edge sold across the country, it's about 80% of the time, is an eased edge. And when I ask fabricators, I talk to fabricators all the time, I travel, and I do a lot of speaking engagements. And the reality is the typical answer is, well, that's the one we offer for free. And that's exactly right. So you're working with the customer, you're trying to fit them a material and a color within their budget. You finally get them to convince on something, they feel good about it, you feel good about it, right? We didn't have to give up margin. And all of a sudden, the customer has a lot of nerves, says, okay, well, let's talk about edge, Jason. And immediately we take off our sales hat and we put on our, oh boy, I don't want to screw this up hat. And we immediately point to the eased edge because that one's free. And the customer's like, okay, I'll take it. And it turns out it's easy for the fabricator to manufacture, and it actually looks nice. So the combination of those three things, right, makes it easy. But we don't make any more money when we do an eased edge. And so for us, and for many fabricators, there's somewhere around 50% of the fabricators have some type of digital equipment, at least a CNC, which means that whether you do an eased edge or a bullnose edge or an OG edge, it really doesn't cost you any more money. Yes, there could be some different costs in the tooling, and yes, there could be some program timing, but at the end of the day, it's somewhat insignificant. And so every time you can charge for those upgrades, some of them have cost of goods, but most of them don't, and most of them don't have any labor components, you're making more money. So here's a great example. So most fabricators like to have their cost of materials be about 1/3 of the overall project cost. So let's say a customer has a 40 square foot kitchen, really basic east edge, and you can get it out of one slab, and that slab costs $600, tax, delivery, all included. A lot of fabricators would say, okay, I'm going to sell that job for $1,800. That would put my cost of materials at 1/3. Now, the average fabricator, according to the Natural Stone Institute, and this was a study done years ago, was somewhere around 5% EBITDA, 5% earnings. Well, let's just say that we're going to institute that it was 10%, okay? So on that $1,800 job, that fabricator made $180 after paying for labor, material, overhead. Now, they haven't paid for taxes yet, but it's $180. So now let's say that customer, right, now, instead of getting an eased edge, you sell them on an upgrade. You sell them on an upgraded edge, and you sell it to them for $250. And in order to do that, whoever was customer facing and sold that upgrade to the customer, you're going to give them 10%. So maybe it was your salesperson, maybe it was somebody in project management, maybe it was a field measurer. And so now you charge $250, you gave them $25, and now the company made $225. You actually made more earnings on the upgrade than you did on the countertop. And so that's powerful. 7 or 8 years ago, we realized this, and as a sales and marketing company, we said, okay, we're going to start selling upgrades. And yes, there's the typical usual ones, but let's go above and beyond. Let's kind of think outside the box, and let's figure out how to provide more to the customer. And we have evolved that program to the point where we actually call these upgrades, we call it hot sauce. And the reason why hot sauce, because everybody asks me, hot sauce is that little bit extra that you pour, right, on something to make it better. And that's the same thing. So your countertops is the meal and the upgrades is the hot sauce. And so we have about, call it 135 to 140 hot sauce items that we offer. Now, of course, you're not offering them to every single customer, and you're offering them at opportune times. But what we have found is that the customer's wallet opens and closes many times throughout the sales process. So an example, somebody walks into your showroom and in their mind, they have a budget of $5,000. Now we should be asking them that as well. A lot of fabricators don't do that. You know, they make assumptions. And if you assume that somebody has a $5,000 budget and they really had a $10,000 budget, well, then you kind of shorted yourself. But let's say in this example, $5,000 budget, they come in, they love a stone that you have, and the cost is going to be $7,000. Okay. So their wallet's open. They spend $7,000, but now they shut it because now they're like, you know what? We've overspent by $2,000. I don't want to talk about anything else. Okay. But now fast forward a couple of days later, maybe somebody from your office now is calling to set up the field measure, and the shock of overspending $2,000 of their budget, whether it was a real budget or arbitrary, maybe has dissipated. And now they're open again. And now you start talking to them, and guess what? The wall starts opening. It's like, hey, I know you have existing countertops. You mentioned that you're pretty handy, but let me tell you about our process because we really like to do the tear out for you. Or you start talking about edges or all these different things, and you're able to upgrade them. You close that call, wallet closes. Now you go out and you do the field measure. You know, the field measurer, truthfully, is the real expert in this whole thing. You know, they're doing 2 or 3 or 5 measures a day. They're coming in with all of their measuring equipment. And they're the ones that the customer's saying, well, what about this and what about that? So they're deemed the expert. And that's where we have about 55% of our upgrades, our hot sauce, are sold by our field measurers. And when I tell fabricators that, they always kind of like, well, Jeff, not my guys. My guys are really technical.
Yeah.
No, my guys. They're incredibly technical, but you know what? They're also really smart and they love to make more money. So we pay them for that. And so now that field measurer is talking about the different options and the customer's like, okay, that's an expert. This is good stuff. What would you do? Well, I would put this in my house. Great. And it's funny. This literally just happened to me 2 weeks ago. I have one of my water heaters started leaking. And so I called the company that did it and they came back out and it was older. And so it was out of warranty, unfortunately. And the guy came back and said, yeah, listen, it's out of warranty. It's run its course. You need to get a new water heater. And so he opens up this book and says, what would you like? And there's 5 different options. And I said, well, I don't know anything about water heaters. I said, what's your opinion? He said, well, this is the one I put in my house. And I said, that's the one I want because he's the expert. Right. And so people buy from what they see and they buy from people that they trust, and we trust experts. Right. So we started this 7 or 8 years ago, and we ended up writing software because what we realized is that people want the Amazon experience. Like we mentioned earlier, people want convenience. And, you know, in a pre-COVID-19 environment, I would tell you 8 out of 10 people were buying things online. Right. In a COVID-19 environment like we're dealing with today, Jason, I think it's 10 out of 10 people are buying things online, right? And buying things at, you know, groceries and dog food and whatever you need, everything are buying online. And so we started catering to that. So now what ends up happening is we now have a software package that is customizable by company, by fabricator, and then even by account. So you can have a retail customer, you can have a box store customer, you can have a custom builder. All of them can still be offered the same items, but each one have different pricing. You can have different commission amounts, and we've just made it easy, right? The software not only educates the customer, but as you mentioned earlier, it educates the fabricator. There are some things in the software that you go, yeah, okay, I know about those, right? But there's some like, I never even thought about that. And a lot of what we find when we talk to fabricators, you know, we're doing 5 or 6 or 7 demos a day with fabricators, and we start going through a lot of these items, and people are like, yeah, I give that away. Yeah, I give that away. And our comment is, why would you do that? You don't really get value out of that, right? You know, when you go to the grocery store and you go to the deli counter and you order a pound of turkey, and the lady behind the counter right? She's shaving the turkey, she's putting it on the scale, and all of a sudden it says 1.05 pounds. What do you pay for? You pay for the 1.05 pounds, and you're okay with that because you're getting value out of that. And so our whole thing is when you get that customer, they're yours, sell them everything that they need. And we are not, we kind of come at this as a consultative approach. We used to call it a low pressure sales. We actually have changed that to say it's a no pressure sale. Think of it this way. You go through a drive-through and you order a sandwich, and then the person on the other end says, hey, Jason, would you like to upgrade that to a large fry and a large Coke? At that point, there's two answers. Yes, please, or no, thank you. But you're not upset about it. And sometimes you say no, but every once in a while, like, hey, I'm a little bit thirsty. Yeah, large Diet Coke would be great.
Right.
But if you don't offer it, people aren't going to upgrade it. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been a really, really huge win for us and for all the fabricators that are on our hot sauce program.
It's hilarious that you're talking about a water heater because mine broke, I think it's about 2-3 months ago now. And again, the guy came over and said, what do you want? And I said, what do you recommend? Like, I don't know what's the best. And I could spend hours researching it and figuring it out and then find out he doesn't have it, the one that I want, and then have to research everything else. But I said, what do you recommend? He said this. And I said, okay. Then he went through his different options. He's like, well, there's 3 or 4 things that you can get and explain each one. And I said, well, yeah, okay, that one's worth it. That one is, no, not that one and not that one. And, he got upgrades out of it because I thought the value was there. Because, yeah, you're right. He explained it to me and let me make that decision. I was never mad that I spent more money.
I love it. And what's really interesting right now, Jason, is that there's this new phenomenon called reverse buyer's remorse. And what's happening is people are doing home renovation projects. And if they're not using a qualified and skilled company, then what happens is they're getting a project done. And then whether it's a week or 6 weeks or 6 months later, they're going somewhere else and all of a sudden seeing something that they didn't even get offered. I'll give you a great example. Almost every fabricator I talk to does waterfall panels, right? The return miter panels that go down on, let's say, an island. But most fabricators don't sell it. And what I mean by that, if a customer comes in and says, hey, I'd like a quote on this countertop, we just quote what they want. We don't ever say, hey, here's what's really cool. Let's talk about some design elements. But now imagine if you're a field measurer, right? You're now the trusted expert. You've got this iPad, you've got our software up there, and you say, hey, we're really excited to install you new countertops, but has anybody ever showed you what a waterfall fan would look like? Because your island is perfect for that. And you start showing the customer pictures, right? And all of a sudden the customer's like, oh my God, that's so cool. And maybe they say yes, and maybe they say no. Here's another example. You go get your car washed, and you pull up, and right before you pay, you have a choice. Do you want the basic, do you want the super, or do you want the deluxe? We get hot sauced every day, Jason, right? And a lot of times we just don't even know it, but that is how things work these days. And why, I'm so passionate within my own company, but also why we then went and had the software developed is in a pre-COVID environment. I mentioned before that the average fabricator is making about 5% EBITDA, and truthfully, that's just not enough. It's not enough money. And as owners and as managers, it's our job to make sure our company is as profitable as possible. And it's not because all that money comes back into our pocket, although you should have the right amount come back because as the owner, you have all the risk. But if you want to take care of your employees, which is your number one asset, and I do a lot of speaking engagements, as I mentioned, and that is my number one thing, is that our employees are our number one asset. And if you take care of them, they will do amazing things for you. But in order to take care of them, your company has to make money. And then the second most important asset is your customers. And again, if you want to provide them with world-class customer service and the newest technology and safe vans and all those things, you need money, right? So in a pre-COVID environment, selling upgrades was absolutely paramount. In a current situation that we're in today, where we have less customers, right? 40 million people on unemployment, and we'll get back, it will all come back. We just don't know when. None of us have that crystal ball. But in an environment now, we have less customers coming through our door. It's essential that we sell more to that customer, right? Because we just have less customers to hold right now. And so it's really interesting. We launched this particular software, the hot sauce selling software, at the end of October of last year, and really, really well received. But the biggest challenge was that everybody was super busy. That's a really busy time. everybody was having record years. And I know for myself, I own a large fabrication shop in Chicago. We were really, really busy. And so while we got a lot of people that actually took the time to do a demo, they're like, listen, we'll install this later because we got too many things going on. Well, right now, companies have time. It's unfortunate, but I'm an optimist. And so I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the silver lining saying, look, we're a really great company, but how do we take it to the next level? So we're taking this opportunity to kind of recalibrate and refocus and come out of this thing bigger, better, and stronger. And it's really amazing to see that all of these fabricators that we're talking to, they're doing the same thing. And so right now they have time and they're looking at this going, I have less customers, my revenue is down by whatever percentage. Here's a great opportunity to sell more. And I think, so there's that magic. I think the other really key thing is anytime you want to get something adopted in your company, you have to have motivation. And what most of us do as owners is we ask our team to do things. Jason, I need you to do this. Jason, I need you to do that. And the reality is we do it because we're good stewards of the company and I like working for you. And so we do it. What's really neat about the Hot Sauce software is that we've built in a commission program and we talk with all the owners and we talk about that you need to pay your employees, right, to do this for you. So, hey, listen, Jason, but we also make it mandatory. I mean, at least at my company, it's mandatory to sell the upgrades. So, hey, Jason, listen, let's just say you're a field measure. Starting tomorrow, right, we got the software for you. We make it super simple. You need to start offering these upgrades to customers. It's mandatory. It's part of your job. But, hey, I'm going to do you something solid. I'm going to pay you a percentage every time you sell something. So at my company, for example, we pay 10% commission. Okay. So whether you're a project manager, whether you're customer service, whether you're a field measure, we even have things that we can sell on install. Our average sell price to an item is $260. That's actually what it is nationally. Let's just use $250 for easy math. If you're a field measure and you sell just one upgrade a day, you made $25. That's $6,500 over the course of a year, which is equivalent to about $3.15 an hour. Now, on the same, so now as a field measure, you're happy, right? Self-funded raise. And listen, if you want to sell 2 a day, you can make $13,000. Nobody's stopping you. Now, what's great is on the company side, right? They're going to generate $65,000 in additional revenue. But remember, I mentioned earlier that a lot of these items don't have any cost of goods or labor. It's actually about 75%. So on that $250 item that you sold and you gave 10% back, right, you're keeping $225. If you then want to engage your customers like a kitchen and bath dealer or a modeler, or maybe you work with the box stores, you're giving them some percentage, whatever is negotiated. And at the end of the day, if you just sold one a day, you're talking about $45,000 a year in additional earnings. That's not gross profit or revenue, that's earnings. And if we go back to talking about if a fabricator is making 10% EBITDA or earnings, that's really equal to $450,000 in new sales. So now I go back to which is easier, go get $450,000 in new customers or just some more to your existing customer base?
Absolutely. So, you're talking a lot about technology here, and let's say I'm a fabricator and I just have a regular bridge saw, I still do stick templating, I'm very manual shop still. Does this still make sense for me to do?
Absolutely. So I mentioned, there's 125 plus items. And look, there are certainly some that are geared toward technology. Like, for example, if somebody's using a digital imaging system like SlabSmith or Vein Match, there's a digital imaging hot sauce item that you can sell. But for the guys that aren't using that, there's also one that's a physical layout. What fabricators sometimes forget is that when you invite a customer into your facility to sit there with 3 slabs and either take your templates or tape and lay it all out, that takes time. And so charge for it. There are certain things, if you ask most fabricators, they will tell you that every job, every day, the customer's asking for it faster. That's just human nature, right? Everybody wants things the next day, right? Instantaneous gratification. And the reality is, a lot of us are just super nice guys. I know we used to do this, and we'd be just like, okay, sir, we'll get it for you tomorrow. No problem. Maybe not tomorrow, but you understand my concept. Right. And then we realize that we're not really providing any value. We're really just causing ourselves to kind of wreck our current fabrication schedule and work overtime. And it's actually costing us more money. So now we just went to customers and said, hey, you know what? We have an expedited delivery program. We just modeled it after FedEx and UPS. If you wanted to send me a package overnight, so I get it tomorrow, you go to UPS and they're gonna say, okay, Jason, when do you want to get this to Geoffrey? If you want to get it to him by 5 o'clock tomorrow, it's $10. If you want to get it to him by noon, it's 30. And if you want it there by 8 in the morning, it's $50. And then you get to decide how urgent you need to get it. A lot of the customers that we work with, right, are working, right? So Monday through Friday, they're challenged maybe to take the time off. They always ask for Saturday appointments. We used to just do it. Now we do it, but we charge a little bit for it. Get the value out of it. We're still providing a service, but again, people are okay. I think where so many people fail is that they sell with their own wallet. They're like, well, who's going to pay for a Saturday install? Not everybody, but there are plenty of people that will pay for it. And the ones that don't want to pay for it, they'll be okay with you coming out Monday through Friday. So lots of opportunities regardless of the size. I think all of us as owners worry about return on investment. And so for those of us that have gone from manual to semi-digital to digital, big expenses you're talking about are, machinery, right? And I think once you have enough volume, you can do the math saying, okay, when I buy that CNC, it makes sense, but maybe my return on investment is not for 3 or 4 years. Or you're a fabricator with a 1 to 2 man shop, and all of a sudden now you're going to 4 or 5, and now you need to get a new truck. You do the math on, you say, okay, here's the advantage of it. And while those are smart investments, typically high capital, they have longer payouts. This hot sauce software, literally, it's a monthly program, and it pays for itself within 2 or 3 days every single month. And then the rest of the month is pure profit. There is nothing that we have done in our business in the 15 years that we've been doing this that has added so much to our bottom line so quickly. Yeah, it's that powerful.
So you kind of alluded to this a bunch of times already. And, while we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic, things are changing and businesses are changing. But looking forward, after we get through all this, how do you see fabrication businesses changing as a whole?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm on several conference calls a day. Well, first of all, I'm on several Zoom or GoToMeeting or visual calls a day. So that's the first thing. I think a lot of things will go back to maybe how we used to know the world, but I think there's going to be a huge shift in how people buy. So again, we already know that people buy online and they buy Amazon, using Amazon and other online retailers. I think you're going to see a lot more people being comfortable going onto your website, looking at materials, doing a kitchen visualizer, and even doing a virtual sales call. So we've got a sales and marketing team. It's about 14 folks, and we're doing Zoom calls a couple days a week because everybody's working remotely right now. And we're in the process of finalizing what our workflow process looks like about doing a virtual call with a customer, right? How does it work? How do we set it up? What do we send that customer in advance to make it successful? And we've been working on it and working with customers, and so far it's been overwhelmingly positive. So I think that if you're not infusing digital technology into your business today, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about the machinery, but it's about other practices, right? I think you need to start, because that's where this is all moving. And I think if you look at all different types of industries, I think every industry is going to be a little bit smaller, right? It's going to be a little bit less. There's not going to be as many players. Unfortunately, that's going to be the same thing in our industry. And while we hate to see that, if you're going to make it, you have to plan for it, and you have to be prepared to not only be able to pick up that volume, but be smarter about it, right? Don't just assume that everything goes completely back to normal. Hopefully some things do, right? But there's certainly going to be some permanent changes.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this. This has been great information. Let's say I'm a fabricator, I'm listening, watching this, and I want to learn more about this hot sauce thing. Where do I go? Who do I contact?
Turns out we have a website. It's called hotsauceyourtops.com. Some really great information on there. There's even a return on investment calculator. You fit in some quick stuff, and it gives you a quick estimate of how much money we think you can make. And then there's a schedule a demo button, and you can go on there and you can pick your day, you can pick your time, and then we schedule a demo with you. It takes about an hour, and the overwhelmingly positive response. I think one of the really neat things about this is that we'll provide all the free training. And basically, once we get you set up, which takes us just a few days, people are selling the next day. So we had a customer in Michigan. This was last year. We actually got them. They were one of our first customers. And we did the training for them on a Monday. And Tuesday by noon, they'd already sold $11,000 in upgrades. And I went to the owner. I'm like, you've already paid for your software for the whole year on that one day. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So go on the website, click on the demo button, and we'd love to talk to you.
All right. Awesome, Geoffrey. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.